on West Side Stories, we see how the Jewish community in West Michigan is dealing with the aftermath of the Pittsburgh shooting.
We also visit with GVSU students who are exploring space.
And we take a look at couchsurfing. Is it the future of Airbnb? All this and more coming up on West Side Stories.
West Side Stories is produced by students from the Multimedia Journalism program at Grand Valley State University. Support also comes from the School of Communications, inspiring thought, perfecting practice.
Welcome to West Side Stories. I'm Preston Dunikuski.
And I'm Callie Hubbard.
During the recent midterm election, many complained that we are a nation divided. And a study from California State University seems to back up those claims. The Center for Study of Hate and Extremism reports that hate crimes in America's 10 largest cities rose 12.5% in 2017. The report concludes that hate crimes continue to grow in 2018 and that overall anti-Black, anti-Semitic, anti-gay, and anti-Latino were the most common types of hate crimes.
The shooting at a Jewish synagogue in Pittsburgh 2 weeks ago is proof that hate crimes in the United States are escalating. In our first story this week, reporter Mackenzie Sorrell takes a look at how the Jewish community in West Michigan is dealing with the aftermath of one of the worst hate crimes ever committed in our country.
My first thought was, oh no, like not again.
They said anti-Semitism was on the rise, and no one believed anyone until 11 people were killed.
A 97-year-old woman, what could she possibly have done to him? Or a married couple, he was 88 and she was 86.
The shooting in Pittsburgh was the worst hate crime in our country's history. The shooter walked into a service at the Tree of Life Synagogue where he shot and killed 11 people and wounded several others. Just 2 days after the shooting, a vigil was held at Grand Valley. Over 250 people gathered together to show support for the Jewish community.
In some ways, it's an interfaith vigil with Jews and Christians and Muslims and agnostics and Hindus all together, crying out against hatred like this. So I think the community together as a whole is coming together stronger in support of our Jewish community here on campus.
Allison Egren, the president of Hillel at GVSU, spoke at the vigil. Egren, who is Jewish, says she appreciates the support, but she also says there were plenty of warning signs that were overlooked that could have prevented the shooting.
I think we can't look past those small things. I mean, a couple years ago, a year or two ago, a bunch of Jewish community centers were getting bomb threats, and no one was taking it seriously. Jews were constantly saying anti-Semitism was still relevant and on the rise, and no one took it seriously. And it took until 11 people getting murdered for people to take it seriously, and for now there to be news coverage, and for now people to be talking about it. But why weren't they taking it seriously a year or two ago? Why did it take for people to actually be murdered for people to take it seriously?
Democrats say the shooting could have been prevented if there were more gun laws. Republicans say the shooting could have been prevented if there were more guns. Egren doesn't completely agree that the government could have prevented this.
The government does need to do more, but so does society. We don't need to rely on the government to be our parents and to be our teachers.
Egren says she wishes she could preserve the interfaith tolerance that was displayed at the vigil. She says it's important to call hate speech out when you hear it, even if it makes you uncomfortable. Egren says that small hate comments may seem harmless, but it only increases the magnitude of anti-Semitism, which could lead to another shooting.
If it could happen there, it could happen anywhere. And it's frightening, it really is.
Every single day, all of us kind of go through our day with that in the back of our minds. Like I know when I'm wearing my Jewish star necklaces and someone makes a comment, there's always that fear of what's preceding their comment about my necklace. Like, is it going to be like, oh, I like your necklace, that's it? Or something else.
According to the Anti-Defamation League, anti-Semitism has risen 57% since 2016. Even though the hatred is rising at an alarming rate, Rabbi Shattuck says he can't live his life in fear.
I think that if we are too fearful and we don't come to synagogue or come to temples or any house of worship, then the anti-Semites and the hate mongers, they win, and I don't want to have them win.
Rabbi Shattuck is encouraging his congregation to continue to come to the temple. He says that they are making security changes for safety reasons. The temple will now have 2 security guards at the doors for every event and service.
This event wouldn't have happened if the synagogue in Pittsburgh had had some security on Sabbath, on Shabbat morning, but we, like them, try to open our doors to everyone. We want to be seen as welcoming, a place of refuge, a place of comfort, a place where you come and, and offer prayers to God. And so we don't want it to feel like it's, a fort. But they and we and synagogues around the country have no choice but to make changes.
The decision to add security guards is not popular with everyone.
It's ridiculous. You shouldn't have to feel the need to show up armed, to go pray to God, to go to a religious ceremony, to go celebrate a life cycle. I mean, it's ridiculous that this is what it's come to.
Egrin says she can't believe there is still so much religious intolerance in 2018. While the Holocaust was almost 80 years ago, she doesn't think that people understand that the hatred for Jews still exists today.
I don't think we'll ever stop being killed for being who we are, unfortunately.
Reporting from Grand Rapids, I'm Mackenzie Sorrell.
While hate crimes in the United States are on the rise, some are fighting the trend. In last week's midterm election in Pittsburgh, some voters were given "I voted" stickers with the slogan, "Stronger than hate." According to CNN, the image was made by Tim Hines, a Pittsburgh man who lives 1 mile from Tree of Life Synagogue, where the shooting took place. The slogan has become a symbol of solidarity for those who oppose hate crimes.
In this next story, we visit a Grand Rapids home to meet 2 people that travel the world via Couchsurfing, sort of a free version of Airbnb. Reporter Callie Hubbard has more on how a couple turned a passion into a fun hobby.
What we do is we actually have people come into our home and stay for free.
This is Natalie Thomas and her husband Andy in their Grand Rapids home. They're waiting for a guest to stay at their house for the weekend. This is not just any particular guest, but a couch surfer, someone who's traveling and looking to find a temporary place to stay. The catch? They won't be paying for their accommodations. The service is free. Couchsurfing is an online website that connects members to the global community of travelers. Surfers can find a place to stay, or they can host fellow couch surfers like Natalie and Andy.
So we've been especially hosting and traveling more because we're both super into it right now. Yeah, it's been really fun. It's been a long time. I think 10 years that I've been involved with it, and it's something we plan to be involved with as long as it's around.
Jacob Hinga, a frequent couch surfer, says it's a great way to meet new people and see what the city is like from a local's point of view.
When I travel personally, I like to experience as much of that area as I can, not from like a tourist perspective. So it's one thing to walk around and see things, but I want to know like how the people who are in that environment actually live like on a day-to-day basis.
Like Hinga, Thomas has always had a passion for travel. She discovered couch surfing about 2 years ago when the website started having social events in Grand Rapids.
So they would post, hey, a couple of us are going to go out for drinks at this place in Grand Rapids, and started meeting up with some locals who have been involved in couchsurfing and heard their stories about cool people they've posted or awesome places they've been able to travel to and the people they've met.
Not only has Thomas been able to meet locals in each city, but she also met her boyfriend through couchsurfing. They say that their everlasting love for beer and people is what sets them apart from others in the community.
My boyfriend Andy and I are very much into craft beer. We have a ridiculous collection down in the basement. It's basically our beer cellar is what we're calling it now. And we really love sharing it with people. It's super fun. We love the beer scene, we love the food scene. So people come to us knowing that they're going to find the best spots to get a great pint, and they're going to be able to hear about some cool new restaurants. Here's an album that we actually got as a gift because we were hosting a musician.
Both Thomas and her husband have both been very involved with couchsurfing and enjoy getting lots of couch requests. However, they say that there's an algorithm to the website, and there's a reason why they pop up first in Grand Rapids.
A couple things they have going are like the verification. So it's ways that you can confirm you're a real person, confirm that your address is accurate, you can confirm with government ID. So we've done all of that just to make sure that surfers know, like, hey, we're legit. But obviously, the more references you get to, the higher up you kind of float to the top in their algorithms.
Although the idea of couchsurfing seems great for many, is it safe?
So many people, and it's usually girls, are like, I don't think I would do it just because I'd be too nervous about it. And I've had a couple friends, females, who do it all the time. One of the girls actually in Dublin, she stayed at multiple places. And she's like, there have been a couple where it's been like, she'll see it kind of through the medium, like whether she gets a vibe talking to a guy. So it's like, if there's a bad review and like someone really is, then you don't go there. So if one girl kind of warns the rest that like, don't do this, then like everyone else will kind of like, don't go there.
Hinga and Thomas say couchsurfing is different from other hosting websites like Airbnb. Not only are you looking for a place to stay, but you're looking to learn about the city from a local's point of view. From West Side Stories, I'm Callie Hubbard.
Thanks for that story, Callie. If you're interested in traveling to a new city and staying with local residents, you can find out more at Couchsurfing.com.
A new paper by Harvard University professors suggesting aliens sent a probe to Earth is raising eyebrows. The paper suggests that the odd, cigar-shaped interstellar object that passed through our solar system last year was sent to investigate Earth. While many astronomers doubt this claim, it has rekindled an interest in the stars. Elliot Perpich visits GVSU to see how some students are exploring the galaxy and beyond.
I want to make that impact where like I did something at Grand Valley and like even after I leave, it's still going to be here.
Preston Seikosi is a student at Grand Valley State University who's trying to bring what he loves to where he lives. Another student named Alexander Sicoli is helping him.
And the people here on college campuses are going to be the people designing those rockets or calculating those equations or discovering the new life on the next planet.
Together, Seikosi and Sicoli are using their passion about the unknown to get others involved.
I've always been interested in space, and then just one night out of the blue, I get a call from Preston, and he was like, hey, I'm starting an astronomy club. Would you be on the e-board for that? And I was like, you know what? Why not?
The club meets every other week, alternating between a formal meeting and what Sicoli calls a hangout.
But then we also just want to have fun and be part of a community too, so we do cool events like making solar system bracelets or going out to the Grand Ravines Park and just sitting around watching the stars, listen to music, and just enjoy each other's company.
The formal meeting begins with a team presentation. Sicoli takes care of the more technical side.
So I help do the research on that, so I always do the what's happening in space news.
Seikosi, on the other hand, prepares a mock presentation. Sicoli says this allows the members to have fun, and it also allows for his favorite part of the meetings.
Preston's horrible jokes. They're super funny, like every time. Like just watching everybody in the audience just react to it and laugh, that always makes me smile.
Seikosi says he found a home with the club, one that he'd been searching for.
So freshman year, everybody's trying to find their place. I couldn't really find my place. And so that year, I started really working with my astronomy club back home because I commuted.
His club back home is the Shoreline Amateur Astronomical Association. Seikosi runs the SAA's social media pages and says the club and its members are what inspired him to start one on campus. One of those members is Vice President Francisco Roldan, who says that the club is great, aside from not having its own observatory.
I have been involved with other astronomical societies. In Milwaukee, for example, and we built a very, very large telescope at our observatory. And when I got here, of course, the first thing I asked, where's your observatory?
Roldan says his question got the ball rolling, and before long, the group found a location and began raising funds to build their own observatory.
The Hemlock Crossing Park was chosen, not so much because it's the greatest place to observe, but because the nature center is there, so you already have a component that will be part of the educational process.
Although it's the SAA's project, the observatory is being built for anybody who'd like to use it.
Ours is defined as a public observatory. We will train the personnel at the Nature Center to operate it, and we will equip it to be able to observe the sun.
Roldan says this observatory will be open to use as much as possible. He's hoping that the open use will cause some park goers to discover their love for astronomy, as he did 63 years ago in Havana, Cuba.
When I was about 10 years old, my school took us to a planetarium. I had never been in a planetarium, and when I walked out of that building, I was hooked. I was going to be a professional astronomer when I grew up.
Roldan said Havana had similar light pollution to some of the big cities in West Michigan.
And when they projected the sky in the dome, I was amazed. I was amazed that this is what the sky really is supposed to look like.
Roldan thinks that regardless of where they live, people of all ages deserve to see what he saw in that planetarium.
Hopefully it'll be 8 and 10-year-old kids that come and look through the instrument who will get turned on to astronomy, like I did when I was that age.
According to Roldan, the observatory is over halfway funded and won't take long to build. In the meantime, Seikosi has his own instrument to study the sky.
I got my telescope freshman year of college. I went out to an event for the Shoreline Club, and they were showing people all their telescopes, and I was just like, this is what I want. And I bought it, and I built it, and it's been one of the greatest things I've ever bought.
Seikosi says he paid a pretty penny for the telescope, but with the ease of setup and transportation, it was a worthwhile purchase.
You just take it out, put the base on the ground, bring out the tube, put the tube on the base, and then it's a bunch of adjusting. And then really all I need to do is just put in a lens and then make sure it's, pointed at something.
Both Roldan and Seikosi like telescopes, but say you don't need them to experience space if you're willing to travel a bit.
I did travel with my wife to Mexico for a solar eclipse.
I went down to Missouri for the solar eclipse. It was supposed to be a trip with my friends, but they ended up bailing on me. But I told myself, I'm not going to miss this event.
Both amateur astronomers have witnessed a solar eclipse, and both had a similar take on it.
Amazing experience. I believe everybody should be able to experience it once in their lifetime.
That is, everybody should see one solar eclipse in their lifetime, I think.
As breathtaking as it was, Seikosi said it was not the most important part of his trip.
I decided to stay another night in Missouri, and I Airbnb a potentially murderous RV out in the middle of nowhere at Mark Twain National Forest. And if you've never experienced being out alone, no lights, no anything, light music playing, and just laying down on Earth and looking out into the sky, those kind of moments are just life-changing for me.
It's moments like these, Seikosi says, have shaped his goals for the future.
The big goal is to become a mechanical engineer, and then the end goal is to become an astronaut.
Seikosi says he's inspired by companies like SpaceX and NASA. Sokoli is also pursuing engineering, but his inspiration came from his middle school science club.
We made these balsa wood planes that only weighed like a couple of grams, and they just were powered by a rubber band. And you literally just let the plane go, and it just slowly circles in the gym for like 5 minutes. And just seeing that like plane flying in the air, that's where I was like, I want to do that on like a big scale.
Sokoli says the workload is tough, but he still finds time for some leisure activities, like astrophotography.
So to do astrophotography, like on the very basic level, you take a camera, like a DSLR, and a tripod, and you set it, because it has to be very still. You'll leave the shutter open for like almost like a minute long, and then all of that gets processed by the camera.
Astrophotography allows people to see stars that are invisible to the naked eye. Seikosi is also excited about astrophotography, but he told us about a camera that was a little more complex.
It's called the James Webb Space Telescope, and I don't like to say it's Hubble's replacement, it's more of Hubble's like successor.
The James Webb Telescope is about the size of a tennis court. According to NASA, it will orbit 1 million miles from Earth, 4 times farther than the moon.
It's quite an undertaking. You have to realize that once we park it out there, there's, at least right now, there's nothing for us to go out there to fix it. So it's quite a gamble, and it's got to be real perfect. But I think that the new scope will discover many new things, just like Hubble did. Heavens only knows what's going to come out of that instrument.
With this telescope, it is groundbreaking. Hubble was able to see pretty far, but this telescope will be able to see the first stars, light that was born from the Big Bang Theory.
Whether you're scared or excited by this, Seikosi says you can't shy away from wanting to know what we'll find.
If we lose our curiosity, if we stop asking those big questions, like we lose our sense of being human.
Here on Earth, I'm Elliot Perpich.
Thanks, Elliot. We should also note that reporter Sam Hall contributed to that story. The James Webb Telescope is set to launch in 2021.
It seems that photojournalist and West Side Stories reporter John Rothwell always has a camera in his hand. John was driving by the Grand River last weekend when he noticed salmon and steelhead fishermen were catching fish on the Grand River, and he filed this report.
At the 6th Street Dam in Grand Rapids, salmon and steelhead pile up, making the Grand River a hot spot for fishermen. Fishermen like Robert Mason. Mason and his two fellow anglers were pulling out their boat after a day on the river.
We like coming down to the Grand. It's one of the best steelhead fisheries in the Midwest. People don't really realize it, but it's an amazing fishery here downtown. You wouldn't think it, but there's tons of steelhead to be caught down here.
Kirk Olson stepped offshore and waded into the river to do his fishing.
Grand River's a great river, fantastic run of fish. This time of the year, I don't know, I like to get out and, do something, get some exercise. Of course, I get quite a bit of it in that water. You hook a fish, you get a little adrenaline run.
A rush that fellow angler Dwight Palmer knows well. He was casting from shore, just below the dam on the east side of the river.
Catching a bunch of steelies, lake trout, sometimes some browns and some kings. Whatever's in the pocket. Sometimes it's slow, sometimes it's like shooting fish in a barrel. So that's pretty much what I do, is just shoot fish in a barrel. If I get one, I get one.
Fishing is unpredictable on the Grand River. After a slow start, Sean Knowles had his luck change when he reeled in a nice sized steelhead.
I came down to the Grand to try and catch some fish today. They've been in here pretty heavy. I haven't had much luck the past couple of weeks, but apparently today's going to change it. Got me a pretty decent little steely.
Fishing the Grand River is not only a fall event. Many reasons have anglers readily fishing the river year-round. Local fisherman Chris Arnold says he was just happy to be out fishing.
Good day of fishing is catching fish, but really I just like being out here. It's a good excuse to get away and not have to think about work or school or anything like that.
The steelhead and salmon run in the Grand River will continue for several weeks. In Grand Rapids, I'm John Rothwell.
And if you decide to try your hand at fishing the Grand River, a fishing license is required for everyone 17 years of age or older. The cost of a resident license is $26 or $10 for 24 hours. Licenses are available at bait and tackle shops throughout Michigan.
It's time once again to check in with WGVU Digital Studios. Check it out.
And here we are, center stage with co-owner Jeff here at Unruly. Live music, how does it fit into the scene here?
That was in the original plan for Unruly. It was always meant to be a live music venue and brewery. That was kind of our concept from the beginning. So it was funny when we first started out, though. We didn't know how accepted that was all going to be because, we didn't want to bring in large bands right away. So we had a small stage that was underneath the mezzanine for a while, and it was basically big enough to put a drum set on, and that was it. And so that's how we started. And then as the crowds built up and the demand for that live music piece accumulated, then we built bigger and bigger and added more and more as we,
Local, national acts. You really are growing this venue.
That's right. We started out with mostly just local music, but always in the concept was that we wanted to bring acts from all over the country and actually internationally. We've had Canadian acts come through. We've had acts from California. We get a lot from Nashville because they're pretty close. East Coast, New York, we've had a few come through New York and from Chicago. So
it's a very different place. It's the live music. You've got coffee. You've got the Rebel Pies. Explain the idea behind this real mashup of different things in one space.
Well, so the original idea of this space was to have almost like a community center where people just come and hang out. And so they come in for coffee in the morning, and the tap room, they can sit anywhere they want in the tap room or outside in the beer garden and just, you know, enjoy the space and have meetings. We have business meetings here all the time. People are here on their laptops. Then it evolves into this nightlife scene as it gets later in the day, and happy hour, and there's the lunch crowd with, you know, with the pizza, and we wanted this experience that it lasted, you know, throughout the entire day, so people felt comfortable coming in here at any time.
And then, of course, the beer helps everyone get just a little unruly.
That's right. That gets everybody juiced up.
Jeff, thanks for being on the draft.
Yeah, for sure.
And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thanks as always to WGVU Digital Studios for that story, and that is all the time we have. I'm Preston Donikoski.
And I'm Callie Hubbard. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.
West Side Stories is produced by students from the Multimedia Journalism program at Grand Valley State University. Support also comes from the School of Communications, inspiring thought, perfecting practice.